Good morning to you. Mark Zeta with HurricaneTrack.com here. Tracking Zeta, Tropical Storm Zeta now, weakened from being a hurricane. It's over the Yucatan, getting ready to move out over the Gulf of Mexico, where it will very quickly strengthen again. It appears to have a very intact core, and I think this is going to be a big problem for the central Gulf Coast. So here I am back in Gulfport, Mississippi, staying at the Home 2 Suites here. This is pretty much I get mail here. I'm just kidding, but I should. This is the 6th time that I have been in Gulfport this season, either staging for a landfall in this general vicinity or on my way through to somewhere else like Laura or Beta or Delta or who knows what. We were here for Cristobal, however you say it, back in June, and here I am on October 27th getting ready to work what will probably be another hurricane landfall mission. This time, though, I think things are going to be different, and we're going to get a pretty big impact for portions of Mississippi that have been able to escape since Cristobal back in June. So let's just start at the beginning, and you can tell Zeta definitely, despite the land interaction is the only thing holding this back. Very well established outflow. Look at that right there. That is concerning. When I see that kind of outflow, and I realize the only thing that's keeping this from strengthening currently is the fact that it's still over land, I also see the well-developed core in here just from the satellite. We're not even using microwave imagery to peer through and look at the structure, and you can just tell that this is poised and ready to go once it moves back out over the very warm water of the Gulf of Mexico. But I'm telling you folks, this look right here where this white cirrus outflow canopy is setting up, that is very efficient, and that's going to provide the exhaust for this system to develop and become a pretty formidable hurricane considering the time of year that we are in. So here's one thing that we need to focus on very seriously, and that is trying to compare this to something in the past and say, well, you know, if it's not going to be a certain category, I'm not going to worry about it. This is getting overhyped, all that kind of stuff. We're going to just stick to the facts and the science and the forecasting and have you understand that more than likely, strong probability, a hurricane is going to make landfall in extreme southeast Louisiana and or Mississippi and bring hurricane conditions, meaning 80, 90, maybe 100 mile per hour wind gusts. You're going to have some sustained wind where the average 1 minute wind will be above 74 miles per hour. That's going to cause trees to fall, power outages, some damage, and that's going to extend upward from the coast, inland from the coast. Upward meaning latitude is what I was trying to think of there. That's going to extend inland from the coast as well. So interior Mississippi, mainly the southeast part of the state, and then up through Alabama and into the southeast U.S. and eventually the mid-Atlantic. This is going to be an impactful storm, and it is my opinion that this is going to catch a lot of people by surprise. They're going to be thinking, it's late in the season, the Gulf has cooled. We've heard people say that on Twitter. Not me. I have been trying to, and other social media, not just Twitter, talk about the fact that, yes, the Gulf has cooled, and so this will prevent this from becoming, you know, a Category 4, but I believe this is still going to make it to 100 miles per hour at some point, and that is a solid Category 2. We'll look at all this, but the main focus of what we're going to go over today will be impacts and what to expect. So let's jump in and take a look at that. This is a nice graphic created by one of our crowdfunding folks. I'm telling you what, that whole Patreon thing, yes, it is providing a means for me to make a living and rely on the crowd part of crowdfunding, but what people contribute in terms of their time and talent is equally as important. I'm able to pay my bills, I'm able to afford to do this work, but wow, this is great. And I know that there's a key messages graphic already put together by the Hurricane Center, but, you know, we wanted to make something our own, so to speak, just kind of dress it up a little bit and give it a little bit of a different character. And this was created by CJ down in Florida. So, you know, the main thing, and I just talked about this a little bit, it has weakened to a tropical storm, but it is expected to rapidly strengthen into a hurricane again today once it moves over those warm waters of the Gulf. And as I'll show you in a moment, especially the southern and central Gulf, the water is still plenty warm. Hurricane and storm surge warnings are now in effect for a pretty good chunk of coastline. And I'm going to show you the storm surge forecast in just a moment. And then this one right here, as Zeta moves inland, the heavy rain and flood threat and even wind damage is going to be problematic. And you can see the track over here. This is a cropped image from our tracking map that we use. This too was created by one of our supporters, Will Woodgate, over in the UK. And you can see, this comes in and it's forecast to clip the southeast part of Louisiana. Here's your watch and warning area, all the way over potentially to the Florida Panhandle. So we're talking the areas that were impacted by Sally, Cristobal back in June. Yeah, most people have recovered from that, but recovery from Sally is still ongoing. Now, the good news here, and I mean the really, really good news, there is practically zero risk at this point of Zeta directly impacting the areas where Laura and Delta did recently. So this will come in well to the east of Vermilion Bay. Let's just, pick a point. And probably only clipping southeast Louisiana. There's still a risk that this impacts New Orleans directly, and we need to look at that. We're going to have to see what the guidance today shows, but hopefully this will stay even to the south and east, the core of it and the worst of the conditions of New Orleans Metro, because obviously there's a lot of people that live there. It's a big city, and that can cause a lot of problems if you get a hurricane passing directly over. So, but the main thing is the good news, really, really good news. This will more than likely, extremely likely, is going to stay away from the areas where Laura and then Delta came in, causing so much devastation. So the inland impacts, and please don't dismiss flash flooding. It's a slight risk here, and the reason we're not seeing any moderate or high, and this is the other good piece of information, is that Zeta is going to be moving quickly. You're going to see that forward speed really pick up as it comes into the southeast here, the deep south into the southeast, and that'll keep the rainfall rates down. But up here in what we call Appalachia, in the mountainous region up here, what we call orographic lifting, where the mountains are up in the air, right? The mountains stick up and the air is forced up and over, and that helps to squeeze out more moisture. We call that orographic lifting. That is going to squeeze out some moisture, and there's going to be the potential of some flash flooding along the spine of the Appalachians, as you can see outlined in yellow there. And the best thing that you can do, seriously, if you are concerned about this, if you have interest in those areas, and we're talking about, especially in the yellow, along the Gulf Coast into Alabama, Mississippi, and northwest Georgia. I think you guys pretty much get it. You've dealt with this before, but it's more of a rare event up in portions of the mid-Atlantic there, and interior parts of the mid-Atlantic, Virginia, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Maryland, etc., even eastern Ohio. Go to weather.gov, weather.gov, put in your zip code, it's up in the left-hand corner usually, and read anything in red, hazardous weather outlook, any types of watches or warnings if there's a flood watch that ever gets put up. Very helpful information there at weather.gov for you to understand what's happening, because believe it or not, for this region, this is going to be your hurricane too. It comes in the Gulf, rapidly moving, combining with a big trough that's going to be coming in with a cutoff low at its base. This is going to be problematic, I'm telling you, and we're just a few days, a week from the presidential election, and there will be people potentially without power, maybe even a large area. We'll see, and luckily it's not even closer to November 3rd, but this hurricanes, they say elections have consequences. Well, so do hurricanes, and this is going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. There will be impacts. I've been talking about this. I just get, one quick soapbox moment. You got to be careful that you overhype stuff. I get that. And I really try to avoid that unless it's warranted. Katrina, Laura, Charlie. You can think of the really nasty ones. Sandy, 2012. That was a Category 1 that we had to hype up like a big dog, as they say, because it was going to have such massive consequences, and it did. So this is kind of in the middle. You know, we don't want to overhype it and make too much of it, because no, it's not peak season. But all throughout the last several days, just all this talk of shear and dry air and the colder Gulf that's cooled off significantly. I know people want to latch on to any hope that they can get, but it feeds their confirmation bias that they already don't want to have to deal with a hurricane. And that's totally fine. But you can't let that cloud the reality that, and as we see here on this graphic, in Mississippi and parts of eastern Louisiana, the potential exists for 4 to 6 feet of storm surge. And that might even go higher if we see Zeta getting stronger. And that's an impact. That's going to cause some problems. It's not devastating, but it needs to be taken seriously. And so to diminish it and take away from the messaging, we just want to be careful of that we make sure it's not overdone, but we also don't downplay it and make it look like, oh, this is not going to be a big deal. Because at the end of the day, it matters to you, where you live, your house, your apartment, your condo, your boat, your business, your school, whatever the case may be. It matters to you as an individual. And there's a lot of individuals that live from here to here that could have to deal with some storm surge, with the majority of it being in Mississippi and eastern Louisiana. We just have to be prepared for it, all right? So here's one of the models. This is the HWRF from this morning. And I'm going to tell you, it's done pretty well with handling the structure of Zeta in the last day or so, especially. It's really caught on, and it seems to represent what's going on very well. So this is the 6Z run, meaning it was initialized around 2 a.m. this morning. And let's just kind of see what it shows. There's the center of Zeta sitting over the northwest Yucatan there, which we know that's where it is now. Fairly well representative. Earlier today, when this was initialized, it was at around 980. Right now, it's currently at 984. Those are estimates based on some land observations, I'm sure. But anyway, let's move this out. And look at that. The model, I mean, come on, this is pretty cool. The model is forecasting by 15Z today, which is just a couple of hours from now, that it would be around 984. And that's where it's currently progged at by the Hurricane Center. So yes, I would say that the HWRF has a pretty good handle on things. But look how quickly it starts to restructure itself and organize. Now we're out to tonight, around 8 p.m. Eastern Central, 7 p.m. Central Time. Very quickly. I mean, look at the structure that it's got in there. Really quickly organizing, symmetrical for the most part. And that, I'm telling you folks, when I saw that satellite image right there, that's that outflow. It's going to be moving into quite a favorable area of upward motion. So we keep on going into the overnight hours. Finally, 2 a.m. Wednesday morning Eastern Time on into 8 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, 964. 64, yes, that's what the HWRF is showing. That's a solid Cat 2 pressure-wise. And it's a fairly structured, well-structured hurricane at this point. Now you see Louisiana coming into view up here. And you might look and you say, well, Mark, it's due south of Vermilion Bay, right? Sycamore Point, right in here. Don Moe, does he have to be worried? Probably not, because what's going to happen, it's going to start to turn rather quickly. Pressure down to 961 at this point. That hopefully, even if it's 10 millibars too strong in the model, that's still 971 millibars if you want to be liberal about it and shave off or add 10 millibars, if you will. That's still a 971 hurricane approaching Louisiana on October 28th. Are you kidding me? So this is late tomorrow afternoon. This is around sunset. And the HWRF brings it in just to the south of and west of New Orleans, right in here. There's Lake Pontchartrain. This is the HWRF. I mean, is it going to be right? Well, time will tell. I think we might see a little shift in the 11 o'clock track, just a hair, but this is a case, ladies and gentlemen, where miles are going to matter. Every mile closer to New Orleans that this, what core that this does have, assuming that the HWRF is on target, and so far it's done pretty well, every mile here is going to matter. And you know, you get a metropolitan area like New Orleans, Metairie, and vicinity into the core of a 90 or 100 mile per hour hurricane, you're going to have problems. So we're going to have to watch this very closely and see what the 12Z guidance indicates, etc. Then it moves fairly quickly there, just bypassing, you know, the center. And let's just draw that in. Let's say the center is right here. There's the eye at 7 p.m. Central. And then what is it, 6 hours later? Is that what we do? Levi's increments here. 6 hours later, it's, oh, I see, I think it all moved. That's annoying. I see, yeah, the map extent follows the center. So my little idea of tracing it out doesn't work. Sorry. But you get the idea. It's coming in just south of New Orleans over here, and then it ends up over here. That's a close call. It really is in the HWRF. And we're only talking 45 hours out. You know, you would think, man, it's got to be accurate with, you know, within 2 days. What is the accuracy? And it just depends. You know, the overall track guidance from the Hurricane Center is, and I haven't looked up what it was for 2019. It's always adjusting. But this is where every mile is going to count. Now, what about Alabama, Mississippi? That onshore flow surge coming in, absolutely. It's just a matter of where the worst of the winds comes in terms of the worst effects. And even 2 days out now, it's hard to know for sure. We are within the 2 day window. And this is why it's going to be so important for everybody in southeast Louisiana, all of coastal Mississippi, all of coastal Alabama, and even over here to Pensacola and that area to the Alabama border, Navarre, etc. Just, you know, pay attention. Be ready. Hopefully the worst of it stays to your west for your sake, but that means it's going to be pretty rough for Mississippi, Louisiana, and parts of coastal Alabama. But I am most concerned about Mississippi's coast with that surge. So again, the water temperatures. Yes, the 80-degree line has pulled back, and it's just south of the coast. But I'm going to tell you something, and if you know your geography, again, let me get a better color here. Let's say that the track is at the end like this, that's the track of the core. Between this latitude line and this latitude line here, 28 to 29, is roughly 60 nautical miles. I'm telling you, folks, the amount of distance, and look, the 26 Celsius line almost splits it in half. So there's only going to be about 30 miles of 79-degree water. Come on, give me a break. It's not going to be, well, it's just, I try to laugh only because it's like, God, it is not going to just fall apart. The dynamics of the atmosphere are going to help it. The water temperatures are not 65, they're not 55. We're talking 78, 79 versus 80 or 81. And I'm just trying to hone in on people are going to be surprised. That's what I feel like. They're going to be like, dang, remember Sally in western Florida there, the panhandle, the extreme western panhandle? People were surprised. They were like, we had no idea it was going to be this bad. And yet the warnings were up and so forth and so on. And yet they got surprised. They really did. Think Orange Beach, areas east of Gulf Shores, in and around Navarre, Pensacola Beach, that region. Sally surprised them. This could do the same potentially for New Orleans and areas east of there, certainly Bay St. Louis, all the Mississippi coast. You guys know more than anybody, really. I mean, come on. And then potentially as far east as Mobile, Dauphin Island, and Gulf Shores. But I think this is going to be mainly a Mississippi and Louisiana issue in terms of the coastal impacts. All right? So one more thing, and then I'll let you go. What we're going to be doing Why I'm down here, zooming in on our tracking map. Well, we got our camera systems. I've got some great help. Charles from Wilmington, North Carolina came with me to help out. Also one of our crowdfunding folks, Greg Nordstrom, lives down here in Gulfport. And there's Gulfport. There's the black line of the track. Pretty close to Gulfport, it shows, after crossing southeast Louisiana. And just real quick, this is what I'm saying. Every mile, the skinny black line here that I'm highlighting in red is the center of the center. And remember, a hurricane is not a little black line. The core could be, the eye might be large like that, something like that. Maybe that's the shape of the eye as it moves up. I'm just approximating here. So outside of that, you have the radius of maximum winds. So it's much larger, the worst of the winds, etc. The little black line is just the center of the center. So if you move this way, 10, 15, 20 miles, or this way, 10, 15, 20 miles, you extend the effects those directions as well. And look at this is metropolitan New Orleans all through here. New Orleans East, New Orleans proper, all the way down into Metairie. Yeah, so you bring this track and angle just a little bit more like that, and you're going to get a lot more in the way of hurricane conditions in New Orleans. I'm even worried about potentially Mandeville on the North Shore, if it were to be off even more and come across this way. We'll see. I mean, it's within the cone of uncertainty, and that's what this is, that the center itself, the center would stay within the cone a certain amount of times. This says nothing about impacts. The cone is all about where the center is. Anyhow, what I'm going to be doing, more than likely, we will set up cameras in Mississippi all the way over to Mandeville, Louisiana. I'm not going to worry about setting anything up in New Orleans because everybody lives there. There's probably going to be very few evacuations, if any, and there's lots of media down here, so New Orleans is going to be covered. I want to put a camera over in Mandeville. Actually, it's like right up here, I think, and on the North Shore, just to be safe. And then everything else, I'm going to concentrate down in Mississippi because I think the surge all through here could be rather significant. I think between 5 and 8 feet is a good, like Nate did. Nate had some 8-9 foot surge heights in some spots. So we're going to concentrate what we've got. I think we brought 8 cameras. We might go to Dauphin Island. We'll see. Maybe over here to Gulf Shores, but I can wait and pull the trigger on that tomorrow. For now, I'm thinking coastal Mississippi in our usual spots. Waveland, probably Bay St. Louis this time, past Christian, Gulfport, Biloxi. All the areas along Highway 90 that we have come to know so well since especially August 28th, 29th, 2005. And ever since then, the many, many deployments. I think I have deployed in Mississippi more than North Carolina in my career, believe it or not. That's saying something. Wow. All right, so that's the plan. I will be live today on YouTube, our public YouTube feed. All this supported by our crowdfunding folks. Patreon.com/HurricaneTrack if you want to get involved with that. There's a link in the description. And we'll be talking about that while we're out streaming live, setting up the equipment. Never too late to become a part of what we're doing. So here we are, the end of October, another hurricane threat in what has turned out to be quite an historic hurricane season. All right, well, good luck to you guys down here. I'm with you. I'm here. We know each other. I think we've got to know each other pretty well, certainly this year and over the past several years. Hang in there. Hopefully, this is it. And I mean, we're running out of time anyway. Winter is coming, and that'll shut things down. All right, have a good one. And as always, thanks for tuning in. I am Mark Setheth. I'm going to get this done and on the YouTubes. And I'll see you from the road out there as we set up our cameras and our weather station and all the other stuff as we track what will be Hurricane Zeta. Again, Mark Setheth, HurricaneTrack.com. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you again from the vehicle.